Hi, I'm Rajiv, and today we're talking about handwriting. If you have any interest at all in learning calligraphy, if you mainly print and you would like to learn some script, or if you know how to write in cursive, but you haven't done it in a long time and you're inspired to brush it up and make it better, then I want this to be the inspiration for you to actually do all of those things. When I was a little kid in school, we still had to learn how to write in cursive. In first grade and second grade, we were printing letters, and in third grade, we were introduced to cursive script. It was kind of shocking to me to learn that in the last decade or so, cursive script was taken out of the school curriculum. They realized that kids are probably going to be typing, and it was much more useful for them to learn how to type rather than actually learn cursive lettering. Interestingly, they found that when they removed cursive script from the curriculum, kids weren't actually learning at the speed that was normal. Scientific research proved that learning cursive script was associated with certain brain waves making connections and the ability to form fluid thought. I've heard, this is hearsay, I haven't done my research, but I've heard that they've brought back cursive to the curriculum in certain states and that they're actually teaching it again. To quote Mean Girls, irregardless of what's happening out there, I will tell you that handwriting is a very important part of my life. My handwriting went from cursive script to calligraphy when I was about 12 years old. The term calligraphy actually means in Greek, beautiful writing. I think that there's something so special about writing out words by hand. In this day and age, when we send countless messages a day by email and by text, when you take the time to actually sit down and you pull out a writing implement and you actually take out paper and you write your words down, you put that all in an envelope and you send it off to someone, when the person receives that and they're holding it in their hand, more than the words that are appearing on the paper, the act of what you did has an impact on the recipient. They know that you took the time to sit down and do this by hand. And that's why, to me, handwriting or just printing by hand is so special today. If you want to brush up on your handwriting at home, the thing I suggest doing is just going back to the basics and taking a piece of graph paper and a pencil and writing out the letters in your head as you know them. Mark out the height of what you want your capital letters to be. So let's make the capital letters 1, 2, 3, 4 squares high. And then write out A to Z as you know it. So let's pretend I'm Nicki Minaj. And Nikki don't got time for learning Spencerian script, but she wants to improve her writing. So Nikki would write out A to Z as she just knows it. So maybe her capital A is like that. Maybe her capital B is like this, but focus and make it all the same height. Maybe the C is just like that. Maybe the D is like this. Okay? Like that. Now, make two lines that are half that height. So we made these 4 boxes. Make 2 lines that are 2 boxes high and write out the lowercase letters. So A, and try to connect them. Write them together. B, C, D, E, F, and so on. And then start to write out words slowly, combining your letters. So we're going to have 4 spaces high and 2 spaces high for the small letters. So A, P, P, L, E. And do it slowly and do it with a pencil. And this is your practice. 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there, maybe an hour sometimes. Just work on your script and it will get better. And then get out a pen and a piece of lined paper and write an old-fashioned letter to someone that you know, and you will see how special that is for yourself and how it feels for the person to actually receive that you took the time to write to them. Simple. It's simple, but it does require some dedication and it does require practice. That's if you want to improve the handwriting that you already know. If you want to learn a new script, then this requires a bit more dedication. If you want to learn a new script, you need to get one of these copy manuals. Like, let's pull this one out now. This is AIM's Compendium of Practical and Ornamental Penmanship, giving more than 20 entire alphabets. And in AIM's Compendium, this is a reprint of an old book and it's still available. We have sections that talk about the position of how to sit, and this really is something that was taught in schools. This is something that I have learned by going to IAMPETH conventions, how to sit properly to be able to write this way. Then we have sections on how to hold the pen, and then eventually we get to practice exercises. So these are like the little stretches that you would do before you go to the gym. So the very beginning, even children would do this in the 19th century in school, is they would be making ovals. Just like this. And at the beginning, the ovals would look awful. This is what the ovals would look like. And it's with instruction and time that they would learn, no, you don't use your fingers and your wrist to make the movement. You use your whole arm. In order for this script to be beautiful, it's not written like this. It's actually the complete opposite. The irony is, in order to write beautifully, you are not using your wrist, you are not using your fingers, you're using your whole arm. And the movement, you sit up straight, your feet have to be planted on the ground, not crisscross, not one knee up. And it says this in these books, both feet planted on the ground. You sit squarely to the paper and you sit erect, not leaned over like this and hollow chested. And you trust that your arm will guide the pen or the pencil. And a key thing is my whole arm is on the table. It's very important. So it's not over here, because over here my elbow is not resting on anything. You have to be like this, so my elbow is supported. My fingers are actually lifted up, holding the pencil lightly. And this is what actually creates fluid movement. This takes a lot of practice. Once you're warmed up, it's with the same movement that the letters are formed. Fluid. Even when I'm writing letters over here, I am using my whole shoulder and my forearm. Not just my fingers and my wrist. Things like this curve right here, it is done in less than a second, but it takes years and years and years of practice to do this so that it's fluid and it's even. This is just a simple curve, but it goes up like this, down and back up. And the beauty of the curve is that it's done in one quick motion. like so many things, like making pottery, like painting, like playing music, you reach a level of beauty only when it's done fluidly, where it looks effortless. And the irony is that in order to make it look effortless, you need to work really, really hard for many, many years to get it there. So don't be daunted at the very beginning when you're starting out, when you're practicing lettering. It's not going to look like this, and your curves will look like this. And you'll be scared. You'll be scared to just go for it and use your arm. Don't focus, though, on trying to make a beautiful curve. Don't focus on, oh, let me copy that curve like this. It's much more important to just go for it. And even if your first curve looks like that, and you're like, oh, it's not a curve. The important thing was you used your whole arm. So maybe you use your whole arm and you don't know where it's going to go, and you're trying to make a curve and, oh, it's not a curve. Well, this motion, just the repeated motion, is what's going to develop the muscles of your arm and your shoulder to get to this place. Then, slowly you come to a section where every capital letter is laid out on lines. So these capital letters are 3 lines high. And then the lowercase letters, the main height, what we call the X height, is, because it's the size of an X, is one line high. You take lined paper and you carefully copy out every letter. There's also a slant to these letters. So Platt, Rogers, Spencer decided that the beauty of this writing was when it was on a 52-degree slant. And that's the main slant of all these letters. So the 52 degrees is also something that we practice. We practice doing squiggles that are on this 52-degree slant. Not 30 degrees, not 45, not 80 degrees, 52 degrees. So even an A, it's written on the slant. Now, I haven't focused too much on 52 degrees. I have to tell you, I have not been a good boy. I have not been practicing as much as I should be practicing. My attempts at this are very gradual, and I am growing very slowly. But learning the principles of these scripts, they're a starting point, and then it's up to you. It's up to you to actually work on these things. You learn what every letter should look like, and then you attempt them. And when you attempt them, first, they're not very nice. They don't look great, but it's a beginning. And then you just do it over and over and over again, and you take lessons. Some of the lessons are videos that are online that you can watch that are a wonderful resource. And again, I strongly suggest joining a society and being with other people that actually do this regularly, because they're a wonderful group of people and they share their knowledge with you. I really insist on beginners starting with just a pencil and a piece of paper. Even if you're learning a fancy script like Spencerian script, I don't suggest starting with a pen. There's something very fluid and forgiving about a pencil. You're just focused on making the shapes for these letters. That's how I started. When I was copying these letters from the 19th century, I was just doing them with a pencil on paper. And it was years later that I moved from a pencil and paper to the actual tools that they would have been using in the 19th century. So when I'm writing a letter in script, I'm not writing with a pencil. I'm writing with an actual nib in the style of the nib that they would use in the 1800s. And there were many, many, many different styles of nibs for different kinds of writing. This nib right here is a Leonard Principality nib. That's the name of the nib. And it is put into what we call an oblique pen holder. So this pen holder was actually made for me by Mike Ward. He's not only a calligrapher, but he's an amazing woodworker, and he turned this pen and covered it in leather for me. Michael, I love this pen so much. And it holds the nib on a slant, which makes it easier to write Spencerian script. And then I have actual ink, and this is some ink that I really love. Mike actually showed me this ink. It's walnut ink. It's made from actual walnuts, and it comes in a dried form of these little flakes. These are black walnut crystals, and these little crystals just get put into water and mixed around, and that makes the ink. So we only mix up a little bit of it at a time, and a little goes a long way. It's a beautiful brown ink. And this book, also designed by Mike. I'm just like a Mike Ward fan. It's my practice book. So when I'm writing out an address and it's on an important envelope, I'll often go in here first. Oh, here was my note to Drew Barrymore. This is when I was on her show. I was writing her a little note, and before I wrote the note out to Drew Barrymore, I was like, I should practice her name a little bit. So here's the page, and this is what I genuinely do. I put lines on the paper and I practice over and over and over again. The D, the B, the small letters together. And I can see when it's wrong. And you know, I have to admit to you, I don't just do this for Drew Barrymore. I even do it for the title cards on my YouTube channel. When I know I have to write out one of those cards, I sit days before and I, with a pencil and paper, map out the letters, write them over and over and over again. Here was where I was writing thank you, and the T was not where I wanted it to be. So even still, I practice. Here is a J that I discovered. It was not the standard J that was in the Spencerian book. It was a J from some historic document, and I was like, wow, that's a beautiful J. And that was the J that I wanted to use for the journal title card. So here are 2 full pages of just J's. There was a good one. All of these were not good. And this is not even with my fancy pen. This is just with a marker, because I knew I would be writing this in chalk. I hope that just sort of enforces how important it is to me to actually practice. So with my pen and ink in my book, start my little warm-up exercises, my ovals. And I do this to just warm up the muscles with the tool that I'm going to be using. So it's after warming up that I feel comfortable enough to write. If you have access to a chalkboard, get a piece of chalk, just go for it. Don't just do the letters, don't just practice the letters, but do the actual warm-up exercises that you might be doing for handwriting. Make ovals. And just go for it. And make, after you've made, 1,000 ovals, try this. Go from making really big ovals to smaller and smaller ovals. Even these tiny ovals, I am using my whole arm and my shoulder. You can practice just ups and downs. You can practice curves that go up and are thrown away from you. They're called thrown because you're throwing your arm away from you. You can practice pulls, curves that go the other way. The other thing about The other wonderful thing about a chalkboard is that you don't have to be scared. You don't have to be scared of putting down ink onto paper and making a mistake or making it ugly. You should not be scared of doing that, by the way. It's just a piece of paper, it's just ink. The only way you'll get better is by doing it. But the liberating thing about a chalkboard is that you write on the chalkboard and you can easily erase it. So I highly recommend practicing on a chalkboard. This inadvertently has taught me so much about lettering, has taught me so much about handwriting and calligraphy, and the actual feel of chalk on this old slate, it's very pleasing to me. But I think it would be nice if I showed you some of these principles on a chalkboard, even just writing out every letter as I write it out. These aren't textbook Spencerian letters, but the letter forms as I like to write them on the chalkboard, uppercase and lowercase. I still write letters to people and I receive letters. I started a P.O. box with the incentive of encouraging people to write. And the P.O. box, every week there are letters in there from people all over the world that have taken the time to write to me. And it's really wonderful to see pen, pencil on paper from all different people. I have some letters here from some of my friends, and every single one is a mark that is unique to them. This is Gigi's handwriting from Ireland, and it's printing. But whenever I see her script on an envelope, I know it's from Gigi. Here's my friend Beate in Munich, and she writes to me in German. And Beate's script is so even, but I really have to focus when I'm reading her words because they're in German. And look at this. This is a letter from what I would consider a master calligrapher, Michael Ward, who's a fellow Canadian and a penman. This does not look like it was written by hand, but this is Michael's writing, and it is incredible. He is an inspiration, and this is one of my cherished letters because I look at it and even I feel like I have such a long way to go with my calligraphy. So, historically, before things were typed out, people communicated by speaking, but the major form of communicating, if you weren't speaking to someone, was by writing. I'm going to just read you a little paragraph from this reprint of an old practice manual from the 1800s, because there's something in here that's really special. Writing is as important as speaking as a medium for communicating thought. For this reason, it is said that writing is a secondary power of speech, and they who cannot read are in part dumb. Scrawls that cannot be read may be compared to talking that cannot be understood, and writing difficult to decipher to stammering speech. Theory directs and art performs. Therefore, inform the mind and train the hand. If you would attain high excellence in penmanship, you must master the principles and faithfully practice them. So, there was a time when it was very, very important to know how to write, and your script was a mark of who you were as a person. So people placed great importance on their script, and this was something that was taught in school from a very, very young age. That is something that has inspired me to take my handwriting and to turn it into something that is now a kind of art. It's what I've made a living from doing for the past 10 years, calligraphy. And I think that the reason I've been able to make a living from it is because not a lot of people do it anymore. It is something that's quite rare, and yet people still recognize what handwriting is. There are some wonderful reprints of old manuals and books from the 1800s that taught penmanship. This book here was originally a book that was published in the 1700s. It's called The Universal Penman. You would copy things from this book and improve your script that way. Prior to this, one of the main styles of writing was something called English roundhand, and it was developed in the 1700s as the standard, elegant way to write. And then this book came out, and then the name of that script changed to copperplate, which is what we call it today. It's this type of script today is commonly known as copperplate calligraphy because of this book, because this book was printed from copper plates. And then I discovered another script, and the other script that I later discovered is something called Spencerian script. And it's called Spencerian script because it was a script developed by a man named Platt Rogers Spencer, who was born in Ohio in 1800, and he developed script that he felt was based on nature, curves and shapes that felt very natural. And Spencer's script is what was taken and adapted to be taught in American schools. So most of the handwriting that we learned as a kid originates with Spencerian script. So if you are inspired to get one of these manuals, the one that I think is readily available is this one right here. It is called Spencerian Penmanship in 9 Easy Lessons, and they're actually reprints of what they had in the 1800s and what were used in schools. So that is one approach to brushing up on penmanship or learning a new style if you're inspired to do that. I like to collect these books. I have some that are reprints. All these are reprints, but this one, this is an original, and this was actually sent to me. Someone sent this to my P.O. box, an older couple. They saw a video of me talking about letter writing, and they very generously put this in the mail and said, "We think you would like this." It was so sweet of them. It's called Hill's Manual of Social and Business Forms, and it's a beautiful book, but it is very intense. And it's these sorts of books that would have been used in the 19th century to really improve your writing. If you were working in the business world and you were writing letters on behalf of the business, they had to look a certain way. So in a book like this, you have letter forms, but you also have instruction on how to make these really beautiful flourishes with just a pen nib and ink. Here's some bird flourishes, and this is something that's still done today by professional calligraphers. If you're serious about learning calligraphy, I would also very strongly suggest joining an organization that I belong to. It's called IAMPETH, IAMPETH, and it stands for the International Association of Master Penmen, Engrossers, and Teachers of Handwriting. IAMPETH is a wonderful organization. The members meet once a year for a convention in a different state. And the convention is a week long. Everybody stays in the same hotel, and every day from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. they give lessons. The calligrapher of the White House was there teaching a class, and I was a little intimidated, but I learned very early on that the whole group, they're just so happy to have young new members join, and whatever age you are, even if you're 80, you can join not knowing anything, and they welcome you with open arms to keep this practice alive. So if you're serious about learning calligraphy, I tell you that joining IAMPETH and going to the convention will give you a lot. That's my intro to handwriting. If this is something that inspires you, and this is something that you would like to learn, I encourage it very much, but it comes with the caveat that it's not just going to happen overnight. Don't think that you're going to sit down with this stuff and learn how to do this within a week. It takes many, many years of practice, but it not only takes practice, it takes dedication. And if you're dedicated and if you practice, you will learn. This is not a talent that I was born with. And I can tell you it's not a talent from the countless letters that I've seen from the 1800s where the average person learned and knew how to write like this. So you can do it too. I want to encourage all of you out there to at least try some old-fashioned writing by hand, even if it's just printing. And if you would like to write to me, you can absolutely do that. The address is Rajiv Surendra, P.O. Box 231532, New York, New York 10023.